I'd be in my room in a second. No, not another brother or sister. I don't want one.
We are all born equal, but not for long. Before we know it, we'll have been sifted, sorted, organised and labelled. We all carry our birth order labels with us throughout our lives. Everyone's a first, middle, last or only child. Some psychologists claim that it has a big impact on our personalities. Others say that it's no more important than which star sign we're born under. So who's right? Does birth order really matter?
Yeah, definitely.
No, I don't think so.
I have no idea.
That's it. That's it. Good boy. Thank you.
December 1998. 2 weeks from now, Harry Tuck is going to become a big brother. For the last 3 years, he's had his parents all to himself. But soon, he's going to get a rival.
I mean, you can't not give them your undivided attention, really. Well, you can't sit there and ignore them, can you? Whereas with two, there's going to be a situation where one of them will not get the attention.
Sometimes if he's tired or he doesn't want to finish his dinner, I'll say, well, you know, he'll ask me to feed him, which I will, but I'll say to him, you know, when the baby comes, this might not be easy. And he says, that's okay, Mummy. But, you know, in real terms, I don't know whether, you know, how much he's going to understand of that when he wants that to happen, when the baby's crying or I'm feeding the baby.
Chickens are fighting, Harry. What are they doing? Oh, he's certainly the king of the castle, but I'm very wary about, as you say, spoiling them.
He's probably spoilt with our time. That's the thing that he has that we can give to him now. With regards to how he's going to react, I don't know, that's hard to say.
Baby.
Babe, is it going to be a boy or a girl?
Boy.
A boy? And what are we going to call him? Is he going to be Harry?
No, Daddy.
He's going to be Daddy? That's a funny name for a baby.
Why won't we call him Harry?
I don't want to.
Don't want to know Harry.
Boobert, we could call him Boobert, couldn't we?
Okay, this is our dolly that we use here at the hospital, and these are the dollies that all the new parents learn how to diaper and wrap babies, because when you were probably a new baby, your mom and dad did a class here.
In America, some parents get so anxious about their firstborns that they take them along to sibling rivalry classes, where they're taught how to change nappies, wrap babies, and express their feelings.
We want to turn it around so that the sticky tags are at the top. You see that, John? How I'm doing that?
I had one little boy that came in one day, and I had the baby up, and I was telling them about the baby, and he grabbed the baby out of my arms, and he flung the baby against the wall, and he stood there, and he said, I hate babies. I hate them of all kinds, all sizes. And I said, I looked at the parents, and they were horrified, and I said, oh, my gosh, I said, I think we really need to talk to him.
Here we go, watch your step. We're going to go right over this way.
According to the theory books, when a new baby arrives, the firstborn is symbolically dethroned. From now on, life becomes a constant battle to regain their parents' attention and fend off their younger siblings.
Let me take you to just a little 3-and-a-half-year-old boy. And he learns a new word, a word that he's never heard before. It's pregnancy. And he learns that his mommy is going to have a baby and that he's going to have a little brother or sister. He learns that mommy is going to go away to the hospital and bring him home a special present, one he soon figures out he could have well done without. And the thing comes home. And the thing has its own room. And the grandparents come and bring the thing gifts. Within a week, that little 3.5-year-old kid is thinking, I think they're going to keep it. And that's where the sibling rivalry starts.
My sister and my aunt took me to the hospital to see him. And I walked in and I saw him, and he was in my mum's arms. And I just looked at him and said, "Who's his mummy?"
I wanted to kill her. I said I wanted to dye my baby sister because I did not want her in the house. I tried to throw her away and everything. I said, "Mom, when are you going to take her back to the hospital?"
The meanest thing I've ever done to my sister that I can remember is when I squeezed her head hard. And for no reason at all. I don't know why I did it.
Hello again. Thank you very much.
D-Day. 2 weeks before Christmas, Harry arrives at the hospital for his first meeting with his day-old brother, Billy.
Mommy's in a room down the end. Ready? Here you go. Hello. Come in. Who is this? Lots of goodies. Give it to Mommy.
Oh.
Billy Bunter.
So much for dethronement. It's love at first sight. But things have changed forever in Harry's world. Yesterday, he was an only child. Today, he has become an eldest child. He has entered the world of birth order. From now on, there will be expectations, responsibilities, privileges, and rivalries. Michelle and Phil have vowed to treat their children equally, but they will always be separated by age. In the past, birth order wasn't a psychological phenomenon, it was a fact of life. Siblings were expected to follow different paths. In many cultures, the first son received special treatment. He was the one who inherited the family business and got a foot up to the throne. Younger siblings just had to grin and bear it. One of the oldest forms of birth order discrimination is still enshrined in British law. It concerns the rights of aristocratic succession and is known as primogeniture.
Well, primogeniture means, first and foremost, that the eldest son, and it almost was dependent upon sons, that the eldest son would succeed, not just a part of the heritage, but to all the heritage. So that the eldest son would inherit the house and the estate that was crucial to maintain the house. What do the other children get? Well, probably nothing much, I suppose. They make their way for themselves. I was the eldest of 3 brothers. My dear brother who was killed in the war wouldn't have enjoyed running this at all. He was more retiring and quiet and reserved. He was a much nicer character than me, if you like to put it that way, I think. In point of fact, I would push him around, and if ever we had a race, although he was nearly 2 years younger than me, I'd always make sure I won. And Oliver, my youngest brother, if I'd been killed in the war, I suppose he would have certainly accepted the responsibility of running here, and I expect he'd have done it very well. But I don't think there was that inbuilt feeling that it would be, that he would be running here.
Nathaniel Fiennes is the 21st eldest son to have inherited Broughton Castle, and all have got there by sole virtue of their birth order. Primogeniture may seem unfair, But by giving one child everything, the family estate was kept intact. It was also supposed to reduce sibling rivalry, because everyone knew their place. Daughters made good marriages, younger sons became parsons or soldiers, and the firstborn got the lot. Elders were supposed to be more responsible, but whether they were good, bad or ugly, no one could deny them their birthright. Meet the 17th Baron, John Fiennes.
This one was irresponsible, unreliable, unattractive gentleman. Don't want him as an ancestor at all. He's got a weak chin, hasn't he? He looks inadequate man, I'm afraid. He went in for racehorses. He mortgaged a lot of property in order to buy racehorses. He won the Oaks in 1880-something or other. But otherwise, I'm afraid he was deplorable. There were two younger brothers who were excellent people, and one of whom actually was the great-great-grandfather of Rafe and Joseph Fiennes, the actors, and they would have been admirable. So you can't say that he had any of the responsible traits of an eldest son.
Eldest sons may have had a head start in life, but the history books are full of lastborns who refuse to be overlooked. Many of the most important social and scientific revolutions have been led by lastborns.
I'm Frank Sulloway. I'm the youngest of three brothers and author of Born to Rebel.
Frank Sulloway is a historian of science who believes that lastborns are instinctively more rebellious than their elder siblings. He has mathematically analysed the attitudes and behaviour of more than 6,000 historical figures and developed his own elaborate theory of birth order. His starting off point and theoretical touchstone is the life and work of Charles Darwin, the Victorian scientist who shocked the world with his theory of evolution.
Well, as the fifth of six children, Darwin was more likely to identify with being an underdog, to being at the bottom of the pecking order, to having a more unconventional view on authority. After all, his elder siblings kind of bullied him around, and he resented that and discusses that in his autobiography. So he was much more likely, as a result of being a younger sibling, to be willing to contest and differ with authority. And that is an absolute prerequisite for somebody who's going to begin a radical revolution in science or any other area.
In 1835, Darwin visited the Galapagos Islands, where his observations of natural behaviour led him to devise his theory of evolution. Darwin proposed that there were two key principles in the natural world: intense competition and intense diversity. Birds and animals occupying the same piece of land will either fight to the death for the same food or try to avoid direct competition by adopting distinct ecological niches. Sulloway's insight was to take Darwinian theory and apply it to human society, arguing that birth order causes siblings to adopt different family niches.
Niche partitioning in families is not unlike the process that we see that went on among Darwin's famous finches in the Galapagos Islands. There are 13 species of finches. Each occupy a different ecological niche, the result of which is they do not compete as intensely with one another as they would, and so more bird life can be supported in the Galapagos if some eat vegetation, some eat insects, and some eat seeds, than if they're all competing for the same small supply of seeds. And that's true of siblings in the same family. And this is valuable to parents. Imagine we're back 50,000 years ago, and the family has 9 good spear throwers, but nobody who can use the bow and arrow or fish or track game. Well, any sibling that came along who developed an expertise that was different from the other siblings would be, in a sense, more valuable than all the duplicates who are all doing the same thing. And that's particularly true with younger siblings. They're at a disadvantage at any particular activity because their elder siblings are bigger and stronger and usually more practiced at the same activity. So if you can be the best person at catching fish rather than the second best spear thrower, that's an advantage to you as a sibling.
But can evolutionary theory really be applied to a modern family? Charles Darwin? Meet the great-great-grandkids.
I'm Sophie Darwin, and I was born in 1961.
I'm Emma Darwin, and I was born 2.5 years later.
I'm Carola Darwin. I was born 3 years after Emma.
When I turned 10, my dad wrote out a beautiful legal document saying, you know, be it known hereinafter that Sophie shall be allowed to stay up to grown-up supper, which means with mum and dad, one night a week. And I remember being a mathematical sort of child thinking, well, now when Emma hits 10, is she going to get a separate night, or is she going to, will I have 2 nights by then, because I'll be 12, will she come in on one of mine or get a separate night? In fact, then Dad went to Brussels and it all fell to bits and nobody else got that special privilege ever.
At one point, Carola wanted to learn the guitar, and she was already doing 2 instruments, and so she just sort of bought a guitar and a book and kind of, you know, taught herself. I also, having given up the piano too early for my piano playing to be much use, later on thought I would like to learn the guitar, and Mum did actually say, please don't, because it's Carola's thing. You've only got 3 in your
3,
final
fine.
point.
Yeah,
Maybe
fine.
got 3 before
Okay,
you're not
get
doing
to
the
the
pause.
No, not really.
There definitely was a feeling that the world had been divided up a bit, and that you should be careful if you competed on somebody's special ground. And I remember loving dance and never doing any because ballet was Emma's thing.
Mum clearly felt that we all needed some territory of our own, and it's no big deal, but I do slightly regret that, and also I slightly resent it.
If you take the evolutionary analogy, what you're saying is, are you actually, is one of us actually a nut-eating bird and the other is a seed-eating bird?
Yes.
Or is it that actually we can all eat either, but if the nut-eating bird's eaten all the nuts,
Yes,
then the other bird has to eat the seed?
The labels first, middle and last don't carry the same legal weight as primogeniture, but they can have a huge psychological impact. In the 20th century, birth order has become internalized. Maybe the rules are not so clear-cut, but they are still felt just as keenly.
It makes you a fighter, because you have to be.
I'm more of the asking, you know, I'm not quite as assertive, like, does this sound good to you? What about this and that? You know, I'm more of, what do you think?
That's you're the young one. There's plenty of good things, but the bad thing was probably, yeah, that, like, as far as in grades, you know, they would always be one, like with my brother, always 1 grade up from me. He'd graduate, you know, 1 year before me. He'd always have the experience, in a sense, first.
People who come to my office, they get told straight out that my goal is to get rid of them. I don't want them hanging around for a long time. There's no 60 easy payment plan at Dr. Lehman's office. So it's roll up the sleeves, let's find out why you're here and what we can do to help you. But if I really want to get in that person's shoes, the best thing for me to do is to understand their family. And birth order is such a wonderful economic way of getting behind someone's eyes and seeing how they see life. Oldest children, they gravitate to the top. They're natural leaders. They're your keepers of the law.
The eldest has this idea of, I was in first place, I should stay in first place, I might not stay there, I might lose it. Any dream of toppling from something, dropping, falling down, being up too high and feeling very insecure, or falling into a bottomless pit. So this idea of falling is a constant issue.
Firstborns, statesmen, directors, bosses, policemen, pilots.
Middle of 3.
Last of 3.
First of 2. First of 2.
First of 2.
First of 3.
First of 2.
Third of 4. Only child.
Being the eldest meant that I was very much the trial child, if you like. I think that my parents were very keen to see that I succeeded, and in doing so they were very keen to make sure that, if you like, I got the best.
I was expected to do well academically at school. I was always being lectured almost on that I had to go out and achieve a better standard of living than what they had. And I never ever felt that my sister was ever given the same treatment.
My younger brother, when he decided what he wanted to do, he'd have a go, and if it wasn't an easy option, he would give up quicker than I would. I decided what I wanted to do, and the more people said, we're sorry, you can't do that, it's not feasible, the more I thought, well, yes, I will do that. As soon as I put my uniform on, well, I don't know whether I drive better in the car or not, but I'm very aware that I'm coming to work, I'm coming to, well, to conform to a set of rules and to do a good job and be a leader. I find it a challenge when I come to work.
Middles. They're the toughest to pin down. They play off of what's ever above them in the family. And they're in many ways, contradictions. So they're the squeezed children. I think in the long run, that builds good psychological muscles for life. Mediator, negotiator, tough-minded.
There can be, for middle children, a sense of a certain unfairness in life. Life's not fair, or I don't get my share. And that can turn negative or positive. It can be like, I'm mad, I'm angry, and I'm going to grab my share, or I'm just going to sit here and pout about it. Or you can develop a kind of a sensitivity to justice, become a lawyer. I think there are a fair number of middle children who go into the legal profession.
Middles, people, lawyers, social workers, mediators, nurses.
My name is Nicola and I'm the second of 3. Second of 2. First of 4. Second of 4. Second of 3. Third of 4. Third of 4. Third of 4. First of 4. Second of 2.
With my brother and my sister, I am not stuck in the middle, but I am definitely in the middle, and I do find myself mediating between the two, because my brother and sister do get on very well, but they do argue.
I didn't really do any nursey things. I didn't bandage people up or anything like that. I guess I just cared for people. The clinical stuff you could learn to do, and anyone could, and you don't have to be particularly good with people in order to do that. But the rest of nursing, the larger side of nursing, is the communication and the giving time and just being with the patient, and that's the side I prefer.
The mediation role has played a big part in me becoming a nurse. I think that really, really helps, because you learn to compromise. You learn to sort of listen. Between my two siblings, I've learned to listen to what they are both worried about, and then sort of try and come to a solution.
Youngest children are the ones that will upset the apple carts. They're the daring ones. They're the ones that will take the chances. Manipulative, social, outgoing, never met a stranger, natural salespeople, written off in life, late bloomers in life, come on late in the stretch in life. They don't live by the rules. They have their own little rules, their own little time clock. They're selfish little suckers, to put it bluntly.
Youngest child might have dreams of being very small, very tiny, among the land of giants.
Lastborns, salesmen, couriers, caterers, tailors. That's so what? Forget your day job. It's the weekend that matters.
Only child. Only child. Only child.
Last of 2. Last of 2.
Last of 2.
Last of 3.
Last of 3. Last of 2.
Last of 3.
Last of 3. Last of 2.
Last of 2.
Last of 3. Last of 2. Last of 3. And first of 2.
I do think younger people are more, like younger members of the family are more outgoing. So things like rock climbing, skydiving, it does tend to be, we have lots of families here, and it does tend to be the younger member of the family who wants to go ahead and do it.
I'm the extrovert, my elder brother is the introvert. I don't see a sort of an aspect of his personality that has that mad streak about him. He just doesn't have that spontaneity. I checked the birth certificate once to see if we had the same parents, because I thought, you know, I'm so radically different from this bloke. He can't be my brother. He can't be my blood brother. He is.
I was always too young to do everything. If we went out and did something, you know, oh, you can't do this, you're too young. So as I became older and became in charge of myself, then I set out to do all the things which I felt that I'd missed out on.
I've always done things which are a little bit more exciting. I play fierce hockey. I used to Thai box, full contact Thai boxing. I used to go canoeing down the fastest rivers, abseiling off rock faces I just climbed. You know, there's always something going on.
So I don't want to, you know, live my life, be really safe and get to be 90 years old and look back and go, well, that was boring, but I made it. You know, I'd much rather go for it and really feel fulfilled and that I've lived.
But it's not all fun and games. Bad sibling relationships can leave deep emotional scars, which can take years of therapy to overcome.
How is you're going to be able to see into his head and find out, into his heart, and find out what he needs, what he really needs.
Say something. Well, have yourself say something.
I'm angry that you can't find self-confidence to help yourself. I'm angry that you're a drug addict. I'm angry that you're not my big brother anymore.
If you trained yourself for 15, 16, 18 years to relate to family members in a certain way, you're pretty good at it. You can suddenly go out into the world and behave differently. If you're creative and if you can get past it, yeah, but sometimes what it is, you carry with you all of these traits and behavior patterns that you know how to do, and you look for people to do them with. Somebody may have beat out an older brother, let's say, you know. It's like, I never thought I could do it, but I finally surpassed that SOB, okay? Oh God, that felt wonderful, I want to do that again. You find a person in adult life who's kind of like an older brother. Takes a while, but you get him. And then what you do is you go zipping past him and you have a second high. And you do it again. And that's sort of slightly compulsive behavior. But that's, what will happen is the person then will be recreating something again and again in a pattern rather than living expansively.
And the presence of big brothers can have some rather unexpected effects. Toronto is Canada's most cosmopolitan city and home to one of the strangest examples of birth order research.
My name is Ray Blanchard, and I am the firstborn head of the clinical sexology program at the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health in Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
For the last 5 years, Ray Blanchard has been researching the impact of birth order on sexual orientation. In 1996, he hit the headlines when he published a paper showing that the more elder brothers a man has, the more likely he is to be gay.
A man with no older brothers has a 2% probability of being gay. By the time you get to men with 4 or more older brothers, the probability rises to about 6%. It did take me a while to shake off my skepticism that birth order could be relevant, and it was only gradually after the second study and third study and fourth study and fifth study that I finally said to myself, gee, this actually seems to be true.
Blanchard has painstakingly combed through historical data collected over the last 60 years and commissioned his own new research. Again and again, he has found the same pattern.
This was the first big sample which I collected myself. The main point to be made by this graphic is that the difference between the two groups in terms of older brothers is a bigger difference than the difference you see with regard to older sisters or younger brothers or younger sisters. So this was, in terms of my own personal research, my breakthrough study, because this was where I established it's only the number of older brothers that matter, that older sisters are essentially invisible to the process.
The stars are so close, we could touch them.
I'm the youngest of 7 children. I have 1 sister and 5 brothers. The sister is the oldest, and I was certainly the baby. I mean, I played that role, I was given that role, and I think that I played it to the hilt many times. I was a nonconformist as early as I can remember. I just wasn't going to do what everybody else did, and I wasn't going to do it the way that everybody else did it. And that was as simple as, you know, all the male things that you're supposed to do. Having 5 brothers, there were certainly lots of males and male things to do, and I just wasn't always going to do that.
Even if your elder brothers are no good as role models, they can still have other uses.
Yeah, younger brothers emulate the older brothers and have crushes on their girlfriends. I was always the opposite. I had crushes on their boyfriends, or their guy friends. Their guy friends, I should say.
He definitely wasn't feminine growing up.
I wasn't a flaming queen or anything.
No, he was not feminine, but he was not as macho as we were. There was a definite difference.
I think I was more like in the middle. I wasn't the queen, I wasn't butch, I was just normal.
Yeah. Compared to us, he probably looked a little bit, you know. We're like one extreme, and Craig was probably normal when it comes to that.
We're probably too much to one extreme, which is not good. And he was
overly macho.
Yeah, probably.
Man's man.
Strutting around, being a peacock, yeah. Something that was interesting, I remember when I was 8 years old, I think we all went to a game, to a Laker game or something. And my dad had said out of having 4 boys, at least one of them statistically will come out gay. And I remember hearing that at 8 years of age, and I felt like raising my hand. I felt like raising my hand at that point.
But why would birth order make younger sons gay? Some researchers see it as an act of last-born rebellion. Others argue that younger sons can be feminized by overprotective mothers. But Ray Blanchard has a much more radical theory. He rejects these psychological explanations, looking instead at the biological impact of getting a hand-me-down womb from your elder brothers.
There are certain substances called HY antigens that are present on cell surfaces in males but not in females. I've theorized that HY antigen from male fetuses sometimes gets into the mother's circulation and alerts her immune system. The mother produces antibodies to HY which cross the placental barrier and enter the fetal brain. When that happens, these antibodies partly prevent the fetal brain from developing in the male typical pattern so that the individual will later be attracted to men rather than women. The probability or maybe strength of maternal immunization increases with each male fetus. Therefore, the probability of homosexuality increases with each older brother.
The only thing I find similar, and maybe some of my own ideology, would be that I do believe that it's biological. I do believe that we come out of our mothers predetermined straight or gay. And I think that I believe that because I do have 6 siblings, and I am the only one who's gay. And we were born to the same 2 parents, and we grew up in the same environment, and we grew up in the same geographical area, and we grew up under the same economical conditions, and yet one of us happens to be gay.
This is acknowledged as one of the best examples of birth order research, but clearly it has its limitations. There are millions of gay men out there who have no elder brothers, and millions of lastborns who are as straight as they come. Birth order may have an effect on sexuality, but it's a small and inconsistent effect, and as the skeptics argue, size matters. And it's the same for many of the other common ideas about birth order. When you put them to the scientific test, there are usually some people who do behave like typical firsts, middles, or lasts, but there are always many others who just don't fit the bill. Birth order may have an impact, but so too do gender, family size, social status, and countless other factors.
I think people like simple formulae. They like something that's an easy idea to cling to. They also have, of course, their own experience of their birth order, and often they feel quite strongly about how their place in the family has affected themselves. And I don't think we should dismiss those feelings, but if you look carefully at the science, then hundreds and thousands of studies have been done which attempt to tease out how important birth order is, And on balance, they come out showing that it's not the big explanatory factor.
But if birth order isn't the main influence on our personalities, then what is? Today, the age-old debate about nature and nurture is being re-examined in the light of new discoveries in genetics. Are we the product of our parents' child-rearing skills or of their DNA? There is now increasing evidence that just as we can inherit our parents' physical characteristics, so we can inherit tendencies towards their personalities and behavior.
We can measure behavior quite reliably. It's very stable over long periods of time. And what research over the last 80 years has shown is that behavior is also highly heritable. Not as heritable as height or weight, but still, by far the biggest thing we know, the biggest factor we know about the causes of individual differences in most areas of behavior is genetics. For example, activity level, differences in activity level. You see that very early on in kids. Some kids are incredibly active, and that's a fairly stable characteristic throughout life. It's not so implausible to think that there are genetic factors that, in combination with all the rest of our physiology, affect how active people are. And same thing for other personality characteristics.
And genetics can also explain why siblings can be so different in character. Birth order theorists claim that whether a child is assertive or rebellious is all dependent on their family position. The geneticists argue that it's all down to a genetic lottery, which has nothing to do with birth order.
And that's what sex is all about, really. It's combining genetic information from two parents and shuffling it. And that means that within a family, children in a family, for a highly heritable trait, will show considerable differences. Genetics predicts that children in a family are different.
I think any parent who's had more than one child will be aware of how different those babies are right from birth. Differences in how adaptable, how easy to soothe, how irritable. Those differences are apparent very early on, and they show a lot of consistency as children grow up. So it's not just that parents are treating firstborn differently from secondborn. What's happening is that relationships within the family are very different. Some of those differences may be linked to birth order, but they're much more powerfully related to personality or temperamental differences in the children that are there from the word go and are not simply birth order effects.
My hat's off to those geneticists. I've got a green-eyed child, number 5. I have brown eyes, and so does my wife. I believe in genetics. Somewhere back there in the Lehman clan, there was a green-eyed person. But I don't like the idea that it just sets everything you are. It doesn't give us that freedom that I think God gave us to be the kind of people we want to be.
Oh, I have no hesitation in saying that the genetic contribution to personality is substantial and amounts to about 40 to 50% of all there is to explain. And I wouldn't have said that 20 years ago. The studies from behavioral genetics have really changed my thinking and most other people's thinking on the subject. But that doesn't alter the fact that we still have to explain the other half of the pie, and that other half is an environmental half, and it presents major problems in allocating that environmental half, and I do think that family environments, and particularly family microenvironments, provide a substantial portion of that other half of the picture.
But it's not just a battle between the couch and the test tube. A growing number of psychologists are themselves questioning the importance of birth order, asking whether it really does have any lasting effect on a child's personality.
My name is Judy Harris. I'm the author of The Nurture Assumption. I'm a firstborn, but so what?
Judy Harris is a leading critic of birth order theory and an arch opponent of Frank Sulloway. She devoted a whole appendix in her book, The Nurture Assumption, to attacking his book, Born to Rebel.
Born to Rebel is extremely hard on firstborns, and I am a firstborn. And I, frankly, was offended by the things that Frank Sulloway said in that book about firstborns. They're nasty, they're disagreeable, they're bossy, they're ambitious, they're closed-minded. Well, really, I don't think I'm any of those things. I thought it was rather unfair. And so, you know, my first impulse was to say, no, this isn't true. What I believe is that the relationships that you work out with the members of your family don't carry over to the relationships and to your behavior in the world outside the family. And I've assembled quite a bit of evidence to suggest that that's the case. Children who were dominated by an older sibling at home are just as likely to take a dominating position in the peer group as the firstborn child. In the family, people get different stereotypes, labels they're called. One is the smart one, one is the athletic one, and so on. But these labels don't come out the door with kids when they go outside. These are family labels, and they're true only in a family setting. Outside, children get different labels, and I think those are the ones that they take with them through life.
Whilst the experts argue, the rest of us get on with our everyday lives. Maybe in the end, life's just too complicated for neat theories like birth order, but some things are a little more certain. Your relationships with your siblings are likely to be the longest in your life. You'll know them longer than your friends, longer than your parents, longer than your own children. And whether or not you take your birth order into the outside world, within your own family, it often does make a big difference. A difference which can be felt for a whole lifetime.
Elsie was always sort of treated as the eldest. And you were always treated as the youngest. That's right. I think so. And I was the one in the middle.
I don't consider that I was ever a bossy boots. But I did like to be, well, sort of, I suppose you'd call it, in control. My sister sort of looked to me to be in control. They would ask me various, what should they do, or something like that. Well, I used to tell them.
Elsie was the first to leave home and is the only sister to have a family of her own. Mary and Marguerite never married, and for the last 40 years, they have lived together in a house where they still share a bedroom.
Well, we take it in turns to get up first. And that person gets the breakfast for a week. And the lunch when we stay in, like Sundays. Then whoever gets up first has to do this room and the kitchen. Yes. You get up first on Thursday and I get up first on Saturday. Well, when I work for Oxfam, I have to get up a bit earlier.
Have you ever had any kind of rivalry between you over anything?
Competition, I should say, probably. But not rivalry. Not rivalry. I mean, we didn't used to have the same boyfriend, or you didn't snatch my boyfriend, or I didn't snatch yours, or anything like that. On one occasion, Mary's boyfriend asked me to go in, but that was because he took me for her.
The Tebbit sisters have always been close, and they all still meet up once a week.
If you have a good relation with your sisters, it's the best relationship among females, I would say.
You can be yourself with a sister. We tell each other off, you know, when it's necessary, whereas you don't do that with friends.
Do you still feel like the youngest then, in any way?
Oh, I think so.
Like how?
Oh, I don't think you do. I do, you know. I mean, when we sort, you know, if you sort of sign a card, when we go up to the crematorium, we always still go up there, and when we sign a card, ours says always different. Mary always does it next, and I'm always last.
Elsie, Mary and Marguerite, we always in that order.
Are you still their big sister?
I reckon so, yes.
How does that, in what way?
Well, Margaret seems to think that I arrange most things.
Do you feel younger than Elsie then? In attitude?
Yes. Yes, I think so.
Like how?
Well, she's got a more settled, conservative ideas, I think.
I can't imagine what it's like being anything other than the eldest, really. I mean, if they were ill or anything, I would, you know, feel responsible. Yes, I suppose you always carry that responsibility if you're the eldest.
March 1999, 3 months after the birth of Billy, the Tucks go for their first family photograph.
We've all been affected by a new person a stranger in our homes. We've all had to adapt to that. And the way we've adapted, I'm sure, has been different for all of us.
Harry's always been very much the centre of attention. And I thought there was going to be a lot more jealousy when Billy came along than there is. But I'd say he's been very good. Hasn't shown anything at all, really.
I think he's matured. I mean, he's very, very proud of Billy. He's very excited that he's here, and he loves him to bits.
He will say, I'm the big brother now, aren't I? And Billy's my little brother. When he gets bigger, he can play with my toys and do the other things that he does now. I think wherever you come in a family, it obviously has an effect on you, whatever it is.
I think your firstborn is always special because they are the first, and until you experience it for yourself, you can't really tell anyone that love that you feel and that I felt for Harry. And you just, I would lie there awake at night as much as you needed to sleep, looking at him, because you're just so amazed at this thing that you've made.
You do treat them differently and behave differently towards them. Not intentionally, but it's experience, isn't it? And you can never, ever engineer the same conditions for a second child as you can for the first. And that's why you turn out differently. Simple as that, really. That's my theory, anyway.